impenetrable that 250 years from now, your descendants are still actively expanding it. For most people, that sounds like an absolute fantasy. And honestly, the numbers back that up. 90% of family wealth completely evaporates by the end of the third generation. 90%. In America, we call it the shirtsleeves to shirtsleeves curse. Your grandfather builds the fortune, your father maintains it, and your grandkids, they blow it. But there's one famous family that completely shattered this curse, building a multi-generational fortune that literally changed the course of world history, the Rothschilds. And today we're going inside their private vault. We are going to break down the exact blueprint that Mayer Rothschild used to build his global empire. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to implement his ultimate wealth preservation tool, something called the family bank, to make sure your money creates ambition in your children, not entitlement. Protect your wealth through education. We bridge the gap between complex legal jargon and practical, real-world asset protection strategies you can actually use. If you are serious about keeping what you've worked so hard to build, do me a favor right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell notification so you never miss a video. I also highly encourage you to watch this one all the way to the end. The final strategy I'm going to share with you, a specific type of interest the Rothschilds charge their own children, is a mindset shift that will completely change how you view your family's true wealth. Trust me, you do not want to miss it. Before we go any further, a quick but important reminder, everything in this video is strictly for educational purposes. Nothing here constitutes legal or financial advice tailored to your personal situation. A licensed financial advisor for your specific circumstances. All right, let's get into it. To understand the genius of the family bank, you first have to understand why most families fail to keep their money in the first place. And the answer might surprise you, because it's not taxes, it's not bad investments, and it's not lawsuits, it's psychology. When highly successful people accumulate significant financial capital, their natural instinct is to give it to their children. They want to make their kids' lives easier. That makes total sense, right? You worked your tail off so your family wouldn't have to struggle the way you did. But here's the problem. Handing over outright cash subsidies, just giving your kids money with no strings attached, creates a devastating psychological trap. It creates dependence. In the world of wealth preservation, this is known as remittance addiction, and it is one of the most destructive forces in generational wealth transfer. This addiction saps the human and intellectual capital of a family faster than almost any other single liability on the family balance sheet. When heirs learn that they don't have to work, that a check is just going to show up no matter what, they lose the dignity of personal achievement. Their ambition evaporates. Their purpose disappears. And within a generation or two, the money is gone, not because it was invested poorly, but because the people managing it were never equipped to handle it. Think about it this way. How many stories have you heard about lottery winners going broke within 5 years? Or trust fund kids who never launch? It's the same principle at work. Money without structure, without accountability, without purpose, it destroys people. Now, in the mid-18th century, a man named Mayer Rothschild understood this danger perfectly. He had accumulated significant financial capital through his banking services in Frankfurt, Germany, but he also had something even more valuable, human capital, specifically 5 sons. And here's where Mayer Rothschild separated himself from virtually every other wealthy patriarch in history. Instead of simply handing his sons a massive inheritance and telling them to go live lives of leisure, he developed a radical strategy. He set each of his 5 sons up in the banking business, but not all in the same city. He placed each one in a different principal financial capital of Europe: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Paris, and Naples. Now, think about how brilliant that is on multiple levels. First, by spreading his sons across 5 different countries, he executed a textbook risk mitigation strategy known as geographic diversification. If one economy collapsed, if one political system fell apart, if war broke out in one region, the other 4 branches would survive and could support the one that was struggling. He wasn't putting all his eggs in one basket. He was putting them in 5 baskets, on 5 different continents of influence, managed by 5 people he trusted with his life, his own sons. But the true genius, the real magic, lay in how he funded these ventures. And this is the part that most people have never heard. Mayer Rothschild did not simply give his sons the money to start their banks, he lent it to them. Let that sink in for a second. He provided them the initial capital, but with a strict proviso they had to pay him back. He charged them interest on the loans, but at a rate lower than what a commercial outside lender would have charged. So the terms were favorable. but they were still real terms with real obligations. And here's the key. Once the original loan was repaid, each son could keep the profits of his individual bank. The money he earned through his own effort, his own skill, his own hustle, that was his. But the original capital? That flowed back to what we would now call the family bank, so that it could be recycled, recirculated, and redeployed to fund new business opportunities for future family members. The capital was never consumed. It was perpetually reinvested. By demanding repayment, Rothschild accomplished something that almost no wealthy parent manages to do. He gave his children every advantage without robbing them of the drive to succeed. His sons didn't feel entitled. They felt obligated. They felt motivated. They had skin in the game, and that made all the difference. Let me pause right here and ask you a direct question, because I think this is going to hit home for a lot of you. Have you ever loaned money to a family member or a friend, only to have them treat it like a gift and never pay you back? Or maybe you're dealing with the opposite side of this right now. You're actively worried that leaving a large inheritance to your children is going to destroy their motivation. It's going to kill their drive. Drop a comment below right now and tell me your story. I want to get a real conversation going in the comments section so we can all learn from each other's experiences. I read every single comment, and your insight might be exactly what someone else in this community needs to hear today. So, the big question becomes, how do you implement the Rothschild blueprint in your own life? How do you stop acting as an ATM for your family and start acting as a family bank? Let's break it down step by step. First, you need to understand what the family bank actually is, and what it is not. The family bank is not a formal corporate institution with a teller window and a lobby. You're not filing for a banking charter. It is a private system of governance within your family. It provides a means to leverage your wealth by making loans available to your family members on terms that are more favorable than what they'd get from a commercial bank, but, and this is critical, with strict rules and accountability attached. Favorable does not mean free. Favorable does not mean optional. It means structured, disciplined, and intentional. Now, there are two primary types of loans your family bank should make. The first is what I call investment loans. These are used to fund a family member's business venture or a strategic investment opportunity. The goal here is to allow the family to grow its financial and intellectual capital together. Maybe your son has a great idea for a tech startup. Maybe your daughter wants to buy her first rental property. An investment loan from the family bank lets them pursue that opportunity with better terms than a bank would offer, but with real accountability. The second type is an enhancement loan. These are used to increase a family member's personal independence and education. For example, funding a college degree, a graduate program, a specialized professional certification, or vocational training. But here's the important part. When a family member requests an enhancement loan, they can't just say, "I want to go to school." They have to explain exactly how this education will increase their personal independence and add measurable value to the family's overall intellectual capital. They need to articulate the return on investment, not just for themselves, but for the family as a whole. Now, to make all of this work, you absolutely must remove the emotion from the transaction. And this is where most families fall apart. You have to implement formal business procedures, period. If your child or grandchild wants a loan from the family bank to start a business, they cannot just ask for it over Thanksgiving dinner. They cannot corner you at a barbecue and say, "Hey Dad, I need 50 grand. No. They must prepare a formal business plan. They must fill out a loan application that is equivalent to what a commercial lender would require. I'm talking about financial projections, market analysis, a clear explanation of how the money will be used and how it will be repaid. They must present this plan to the family bank's board, which, depending on your family's size and complexity, could be you and your spouse, a trusted financial advisor, or a formal trustee if the family bank operates within a trust structure. The point is, there is a process, there is a presentation, and there is a decision that is made based on merit, not emotion. If the loan is granted, the borrower must provide proper ongoing business reports on the investment, quarterly updates, annual reviews, whatever cadence makes sense. They are reporting to their investors because that's exactly what the family bank is, an investor in their success. And crucially, just like Mayer Rothschild demanded from his own sons, the borrower must ultimately repay the loan, with interest on schedule. Now, here is why this structure is so incredibly powerful, and I really want you to absorb this. By enforcing this process, you accomplish something that goes way beyond just protecting your money. You provide your family members with a safe environment in which to obtain a real-world financial education. Think about this. Most schools in America do not teach people how to obtain a business loan. They don't teach you how to manage debt responsibly. They don't teach you how to report to investors or how to present a business plan. These are skills that separate successful entrepreneurs from everyone else, and the family bank allows your children to learn all of them. It allows your kids to make their early financial mistakes, and they will make mistakes in a safe, controlled setting where the consequences are manageable and the lessons are invaluable. They build character, they learn discipline, they develop financial literacy in a way that no classroom ever could. And here's the transformation that happens within your family dynamic. You stop being a parent, handing out an allowance. You become a mentor, guiding an entrepreneur. You shift from a relationship of dependence to a relationship of respect and partnership. That is a game changer for multi-generational wealth. All right, now I promised you the ultimate secret behind the Rothschild empire, and this is the part of the video you absolutely cannot miss. This is the strategy that took the Rothschilds from being a successful banking family to being arguably the most powerful financial dynasty in modern history. While Mayer Rothschild charged his sons a lower financial interest rate on their loans, giving them a competitive advantage over other borrowers, he also charged them a very specific, mandatory secondary rate. He called it, in effect, intellectual interest. Here's what that means. Rothschild required each of his 5 sons to continuously relay back to him every single piece of financial information, market intelligence, and knowledge they gained in their respective cities. Every trade rumor, every political development, every shift in market sentiment, all of it flowed back to the center. Mayer Rothschild then took this intelligence and shared it with his other sons across Europe. Think about what he created. He effectively built a massive continent-wide information network decades before the telegraph even existed. While their competitors were waiting weeks for news to travel by horseback, the Rothschilds had real-time intelligence flowing between London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples. This informational advantage was enormous. This sharing of intellectual capital quickly distanced the Rothschilds from every single one of their competitors and made them the undisputed leaders in their profession. And this right here is the greatest lesson of the family bank. True wealth is not just financial capital sitting in a bank account or a brokerage. It is the human and intellectual capital of your family. A favorable loan gives your child a competitive financial boost. Absolutely. But the sharing of intellectual capital, the ongoing reporting, the mentorship, the exchange of ideas, the lessons learned from both successes and failures, that is the true wealth-preserving reason for forming a family bank. When your daughter reports back to the family on what she learned from her first failed product launch, that failure becomes intellectual capital for the entire family. When your son shares the negotiation tactics he picked up closing his first real estate deal, everyone benefits. You are creating a family culture of learning, sharing, and growing together. You are teaching them how to fish rather than simply handing them the catch. Building wealth is incredibly difficult. Anyone who has done it knows that. But here's the truth that most people don't talk about. Passing wealth down without destroying your heirs is the true test of a legacy. That is the real challenge. And it's the challenge that 90% of families fail. By abandoning the idea of outright cash handouts, by utilizing the structure of the family bank, and by demanding both financial and intellectual repayment from your family members, you ensure that your descendants remain driven, educated, and fiercely protective of the empire you started. You break the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves curse. You build something that lasts. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Head down to the comments right now and tell me, are you going to implement a formal loan application process the next time your child or grandchild asks you for financial help? What kind of intellectual interest are you going to demand from your family? I genuinely want to know. Let me know below. If you found this video valuable and you are committed to protecting your financial legacy, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell notification so you never miss our weekly wealth protection blueprints. And if you know someone, a parent, a grandparent, a business owner, who needs to hear this message, share this video with them. It might be the most important thing they watch all year. Remember, building wealth is hard, but keeping it in the family is even harder. Long-term financial security is a reality only for those who plan, verify, and mentor the next generation. I will see you in the next video.